just did a post that's kind of going viral on what is Atlantic salmon, and it doesn't come out of the Atlantic Ocean. So what is it? Okay, and what are the health benefits or detriments of farmed salmon, which Atlantic salmon is? So that's going viral because moms and dads or whatever want to know for the health of their family. The way our current system is designed, knowledge is sort of gained in isolation, not in its relevance to actually raising a family. And so what I've done after gaining all that knowledge, I did another 20 years of research to apply that knowledge to actually nurturing your family.
How do you think this girls in STEM, entering STEM, girls, in terms of children choosing careers, but also females in STEM who are more mature, how do you think that can and will enrich STEM?
Well, I have to start by saying that, the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, they offer us a new perspective of science, of Allah, God, and the creation of woman, his second self. And so, women's depth, that's my friend has said this, really wonderful. Women's depth is such that only Allah can truly know her, and only our submission to his will allows us the access into such a divine creation. So, really, women are the portal. Women are that gateway that allow for man, or even as Sister Dr. Ava Muhammad, may Allah be pleased with her, says in her book, Real Love, that she's the bridge between Allah and man. So I, I was also reminded that, seeing women as the key or an opening to such a world as STEM. There's so much depth and breadth and knowledge, and especially even going further into our teachings about what we bring into a new civilization coming out of a dying one. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, he said, and if I can read this, Master Fard Muhammad did not come to give us a high order. He came to produce social organization of the highest order, marked by the development and use of written language, spoken language, and by advances in the arts and sciences, the total culture of a people, a high state of cultural development, intellectual and cultural refinement. So again, what is the meaning of civilization? The messenger answers, one having knowledge, and knowledge is the act, fact, or state of knowing. Knowing what? Specific acquaintance or familiarity with a fact, place, awareness, understanding, a range of information. Well, there's a whole body of knowledge that Master Fard Muhammad brought to North America and gave to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad for us. And unfortunately, we don't know it. So how can we manifest this highest degree of social organization without the requisite knowledge? And that was from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan message to the MGT and GCC in 2007. But that is something that we should understand about woman and her role, and the upliftment of women in general in a new society. We need to see that change, and I do believe that woman's role can enrich every single area. We are STEM incarnate. We birth humans. We create organs inside of ourselves. Like we're it.
I would
Well
also
said.
I would also like to address that question.
Okay.
Please.
So first, I want to say that STEM is not friendly to women. So at the level that I was in the sciences, as I went from being a graduate student, which I spent 8 years getting my PhD after 4 years getting an undergraduate, most of the women left science. I'd say probably 90%. I don't know if it's actually that high. And many of the women, well, there were many Asian women and a lot of Caucasian women. Those who were from upper classes or middle classes, their value system, they left to take care of their children. And I had the same value system as well. I came out of the workforce to raise my own children. So the priorities of women are different, and this system isn't really geared for them. And the approach of the system is a very male approach that is not female friendly, which was very, very destructive to, I think, the female soul. So I think there are very few women who stay in these fields, and many to the detriment of what I would say is their own soul, and many who come to you know, go home to raise their children. So I came back, right, after raising my children. But what brought me back was during that whole time, I was studying food science. So the mission that I'm on now, and many of the things that I do, I share a lot of content on social media, on my website, and in other ways, is I'm addressing the health of the family. Why do we need to sour our bread? You know, what is good about the navy bean? So many of these questions. I just did a post that's kind of going viral on what is Atlantic salmon, and it doesn't come out of the Atlantic Ocean. So what is it? Okay. And what are the health benefits or detriments of farmed salmon, which Atlantic salmon is? So that's going viral because moms and dads or whatever want to know for the health of their family. The way our current system is designed, knowledge is sort of gained in isolation, not in its relevance to actually raising a family. And so what I've done after gaining all that knowledge, I did another 20 years of research to apply that knowledge to actually nurturing your family, right?
Mhm.
And that's where the woman comes in. Women have this incredible womb that is creating both energetically and actually physically, both. And so the energy that we bring when we give women this knowledge is enables them to take that knowledge and energetically amplify it to nourish and nurture their families and those in their environment. So they are going to use this information. First, it has to be made relevant for them, but they are going to use, if they're bringing it, they're going to use this information in a way that is nurturing, and that is the feminine energy and not the masculine energy. You don't see men bringing biochemistry so much to the healing, with the exception perhaps of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Most Honorable Louis Farrakhan.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So the next question I had was to do, you mentioned a few terms, and although they haven't been asked, I would like you just to clear them for me, please. You mentioned petrochemical, frequency healing, and healing modality. So if you could just give me, if you don't mind, clear those words for me. What are they?
Are you speaking to me?
Yes, you mentioned.
Okay, I thought that was me. Okay, so petrochemicals are chemicals that are most of our pharmaceuticals. So historically, I don't know if it was the Rockefellers sort of took over our medical system. And one of their goals was to be able to make money out of medications. So they moved from food and herbs to things that are used oil. They just, were really exploiting the use of oil. And so they wanted to be able to use oil to make the medicines, and then have the medicines and basically have a monopoly by which everyone had to come through them to buy these medicines. And at the same time, they wanted to demote anything natural that you might be able to get on your own that you weren't going to be paying them to make. So that was the first one, petrochemical. That just means a chemical made from oil.
Thank you.
Second
and the second was frequency healing.
So if you think about your phone, it is receiving a wave, a frequency that it interprets as information. Our bodies can interpret frequency. It's just sort of like a wave of energy that goes through the air. And the frequency is sort of, if you think about on your dial of your radio, you change the dial. So when you change it, there are different amplitudes of wavelengths. So the frequency is just something that you can adjust. So for instance, one of the things they can do with frequency healing is certain bacteria they know have a certain frequency. And if they set a particular machine to emanate that frequency, it will actually destroy that bacteria.
Right,
okay. Alternatively, we can activate healing frequencies in the body by giving positive energy.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. And the last one was
Before you go any further with that last one,
Okay.
Do those who practice medicine on the highest of echelons, do they actually know what you just said?
No.
They don't
No,
know it.
yeah.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Okay.
No. One of the things going to University of Michigan did for me is I interacted with the top level scientists in the world, and I found that while they were very intelligent, they lacked wisdom, and in many cases, real creativity and curiosity.
And
Yes.
they're satisfied with their current state and their
Well, they're generally overwhelmed to try to keep treading water in this system.
Right. Right. Okay.
And if I can add too,
You're
in
very
Chinese
kind. You're
medicine,
very kind, Dr. Christine.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Dr. Joy.
yes, sir. Well, if I can impart, Dr. Christina, when you were talking about the amplitudes of wavelengths and frequencies, and that we can give positive energy to something, that's exactly how Chinese medicine works. We are piezoelectric or piezoelectric, however you want to pronounce it, beings. So we are electric and magnetic. And when you insert a needle into the fascial tissue, which is better known as the sanjiao or the triple warmer or the triple burner in Chinese medicine, you are literally tapping into that suli, that interstitial space. And that space is actually very quantum to your other studies, where there are a multitude of possibilities of the type of healing that can occur in that space. And so inserting a needle, there are different kinds of metals used, mostly either stainless steel, sometimes gold. And just like looking at the minister this past Savior's Day, so beautiful in gold. Gold is such a highly conductive and frequent energy transmitter that if I were to use a gold needle in somebody, that is automatically tonifying them rather than reducing them. So this goes into channel theory and needle insertion and things of this nature. But you can actually give somebody a positive or a negative charge, depending even on how you turn or manipulate the needle into either a positive wave or a negative wave. So if I had an excess condition, I might want to give it a negative wave in order to reduce the symptom. Whereas if somebody was very deficient, I might want to tune them up and give them more of a positive, more energetic charge.
So would you say then, based upon I'm going to come back to you, Sister Sylvia, to finish your last point. But just before we go on to your next question, so would you recommend where we are now, to both of you, would you recommend that based upon what kind of ailment a person may have, they should travel to a certain part of the world for a natural healing? Because it seems as if different parts of the world have different specialized areas. Okay, so for some of what you're saying, then obviously we would go to not necessarily to China for it, but that's where, you know, the solution to the problem may origin. And you could say the same in different parts of Africa, parts of the Caribbean. So would you break down healing geographically like that? That there are some ailments that we have that we should just, you know, take ourselves up and travel to that part of the world for the solution or for the healing to that ailment?
For my response, I don't think you necessarily would. That's a little bit more like ecotourism, and we're trying to get away from that and let the indigenous have their land or land back. But in terms of healing, you know, we as humans have an innate will and desire to heal ourselves. And in saying that, let's
But the environment is making you sick.
The environment
and all of the dynamics, if they're making you sick, then the healing has got to be more than just a process which you go through. So the point I'm making is, if a solution to a particular ailment that we may have is germane to different parts of the world, then therefore the healing must be not just in the process, but also in the culture that's practiced in that part of the world that gave rise to that solution, no?
So
I-
the
Go on.
the solution is within yourself. We never want to
Right.
teach a patient that the solution is anywhere but within themselves, or
Correct.
I don't even want to like to say a patient, the person. So there are many, many different ways to heal. And when you have a problem, we want to teach people that they have the answer, that they can connect to their own soul and to God, to Allah, and that their intuition can lead them. So one of the things like that I want to do with my website is have many different healing modalities, and the one you're drawn to is the one that you need to learn more about. Now, as a practitioner, I would see the job as sort of saying, you may get an energetic field too, but these are your choices, and letting the person, there's not just one solution. The body's extremely complex, but it can heal through many different ways.
Right. Dr. Joy, you wanted to chime in?
Sister Christina, again, she said it. You are your own natural healer. There is no reason for you to look outside.
I'm going to drive my point home
yourself.
now, right? Because I'm not finished with this point. So for instance, I was having a conversation with someone today about a wellness center in the Caribbean, okay? And I was saying to them, the definition I would use for a wellness center is a place where you can go and get sunshine, vitamin D, which I can't get in the UK at this time unless it's synthetic, okay? I don't want synthetic vitamin D. I want the real stuff, okay? So therefore, I would go to the Caribbean. And if Jamaica has the best quality vitamin D alongside Mexico, then the best place for me to get a top up of vitamin D would be Jamaica and Mexico. That's got to be right. Yeah?
If that's where you're drawn to, then wonderful.
But if I don't go there, then I've got to submit to some synthetic substitute, say in the UK, because the natural stuff is just not here.
Well, you could eat some cod liver oil too. There are other options. I'm not against you going on vacation or going to get some sun, but that's only going to be for a week.
Please encourage me to go
to.
Please encourage me, Dr. Christina, to go to Jamaica as opposed.
Yes, if that's where you want to go, if that's where your heart says you need to go to heal, I would absolutely encourage you to go there. But I don't think we should teach people that they need to make these major changes in order to heal and grow. If you keep hearing them repeat something like that, then maybe if that's what their mind. But a healing or a wellness center, for me, one of the first things, what if we all went and something had a wonderful ambiance, right? A home-like ambiance. What if it had soft music that played, words that were affirmations that helped to change our negative programming.
Now you're finishing off my question I was going to ask you, which is great. Continue.
Yeah, and our negative programming probably accounts for like 90% of why we're ill, because we have internalized, despite the fact that there are plenty of toxins. This is what I do all day, so you don't have to tell me that. But our negative programming has allowed us to hold them in and not allow our own native healing to reject them and to purge them. And so much of what our problem is in our mind. And if I'm absolutely about healing the body, but if we don't heal the mind, then the body won't heal.
Right. So therefore then, my thought to the brother was the wellness center must positively impact all of our five senses.
Yes.
Okay? So it has to bring beauty to our eyes. It has to bring serenity to our ears. It has to give us very tasty, healthy food. Okay. All of our senses have to be positively impacted by way of the nature in which we're created. So how do you then create such in these unnatural environments in which we all find ourselves? At some point, do we not just have to go to areas that have a lot of what we need to be well naturally?
I think people are setting up spas and things all over, and those will grow. But I do want to, if I have a second, answer a question in the chat. And the question is, how do we heal from redundancy, depression, and broken families? So we have hundreds of years of transgenerational trauma that is actually recorded in our DNA, not to mention just in the very water of our cells. But one of the things that actually reformats the DNA back to its natural state is fasting. One of the things that was really interesting to me is that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that in the hereafter, at some point, we will not have to fast. And I'm wondering if one of the major purposes, there are many, many purposes, such as detoxification or whatever, of fasting is to reset the DNA and help the DNA heal from this transgenerational trauma. So our fasting has so much more to it than we have thought. And this is all being, verified by scientific studies in the mainstream, even now.
Fantastic. I never actually heard that being said before, but fantastic. That's a mighty revelation you just shared there. Thank you for that. Because some people were scared to go to the hereafter because they think they want to eat one meal every 3 days. So, so thank you for that revelation. Sister Joy?
Yes, sir. Actually, I had a question for Sister Christina, because of your interest in studies in water and molecular biology. What is it about fasting that actually happens with our bodily fluids, for instance, that may help to repair that intergenerational trauma and DNA, the epigenetics?
So as far as I know, the epigenetics is pretty Newtonian, I'll say, in terms of the biochemical mechanisms. There are enzymes that are actually designed to reset your DNA. If you think about the egg and the sperm, when your cells, the DNA has to be reset in those, right? Your skin cell is formatted to make skin. Your eye cell is formatted to make eye. Your liver cells are formatted to make liver stuff, right? They all have the same exact DNA. But when they tried to clone animals, they found that they couldn't. They were actually taking the nucleus out of skin cells and trying to reformat it, and they couldn't get it right. But your body reformats the DNA in those cells to go back to normal. However, let's say you're eating too many vitamins while you're pregnant. It will actually reformat your DNA to need less of those, to make less enzymes to make your own vitamins, because it thinks it's getting them from the environment. So the environment in which you are actually gestated in or conceived in actually sets a lot of what's going on with your genetics, and trauma is no exception. Trauma is recorded in your DNA, but this is how the DNA is sort of folded, and it's sort of sequestered with different proteins, and different enzymes can go and either open it up or shut it down, and they can reformat it naturally. And so your body has a memory of how to do this, or we would kind of get so messed up as humans that we would never get it right. So when you fast, it actually activates, the body has natural healing pathways. And that's one of the major things that I'm educating about now. It's natural healing pathways that are many times turned on by herbs, and they are turned on by fasting. And it turns on those particular enzymes and those particular genes that start to do that reformatting. It also turns on things that take out the garbage. They get rid of old cells. They get rid of all kinds of garbage proteins. But also after at least 72 hours worth of fasting, your body actually makes new stem cells. These are cells through which all other cells are made. And those cells will actually regenerate tissues and make you younger.
Very good.
So this is all designed into the human body already. We're just activating these processes.
And also tell me about when somebody's on a 3-day fast, for instance, and the 72-hour point initiates those benefits that you just mentioned. What then are the consequences if the fast is broken early, or are they none?
It's just not quite as effective. So I know all of this, and I haven't done just a 3-day water fast. So I usually still have tea in the morning. There are ways, however, to, and this is one of the things that I'm interested in, sort of to scaffold yourself. So we already, many times we put cream, like using cream and less sugar in your tea or in your coffee or whatever. But generally, you're still going to get some benefit. It's just not going to be quite as much benefit. And that's one of the things that I would like to do a little bit more study on, so we know how to optimize it within still giving ourselves some leeway, you know, so that we're not like with a whip and a chain going, you're not having anything but water for 72 hours. Now, if someone wants to do that medically, great. But for those people who are doing a 3-day fast monthly, it's a lot to ask.
Right.
Mm.
So, Silvina, we're on our last questions now because time is running.
Yes,
Unless the sisters have another 5 hours. Do you have 5 hours? This has been a great session. I've really enjoyed both of you. This is phenomenal, phenomenal. Silvina?
It is. We've got a few questions in the chat. I think I've picked up what healing modality is. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Christina. Is it just a mode of healing? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So I'll take some questions from the chat.
We've got 5 minutes.
Okay, so it says, we should take, okay, in terms of detoxification, is ivermectin, this is to either of our guests, is ivermectin something we should take as a first choice to combat parasites?
Yes, I love ivermectin. So I think that this is part of that scaffolding. And I want to be clear that ivermectin is actually derived from molecules made by soil bacteria. And so now, of course, it's probably made synthetically as well, but it's one of the molecules that was found in this milieu made by soil bacteria. Ivermectin is broadly antiviral, broadly antibacterial, anti-cancer properties, anti-wormer. And so it is also very, very anti-inflammatory, and it is has very, very low toxicity, almost no toxicity. So I would say it's something during this time when we are so inundated with pathogens, and I think it's going to escalate. I would have it stored in my house, and you know, I wouldn't use it every day, but for use when needed. And it can also, it prevents transmission, it prevents binding of the spike protein. It does so many things. It's really, I think, an essential medication at this point.
Just one last quick question before we go to closing comments. How would you advise our young girls and our women? What would you advise them in regards to taking up a career in medicine?
I would advise them, one, to find somebody that actually inspires you to learn from, but not to totally eschew the more traditional route of getting knowledge. I liked a PhD. I mean, I liked, my undergraduate because I really learned a lot of science, but learn the science, but realize, don't think you're going to necessarily go into the system with it. So that you have to sort of rely on God to open up your pathway, as well as the funding of that pathway, to apply it to the problems of our community.
Fantastic. So, Dr. Joy, any closing comments that you would like to share with our audience this Thursday evening?
Yes, sir. Well, I just wanted to thank you again for inviting me on here this evening. It's been wonderful. And I do have to again echo the sentiments of Sister Christina, to find somebody who inspires you and stay curious about yourself and your studies, even in terms of, well, let's go back to the ivermectin. I haven't taken ivermectin actually, at least yet. But what I have used in traditional Chinese medicine is the betel nut or the areca nut. It's called Bing Long, and that actually also expels and kills parasites like tapeworms and pinworms and roundworms and hookworms and things like that. So always stay curious. Always say to yourself, well, this might be one avenue, and there might be many more. And again, I think it's very important to always keep Allah first to always allow him to guide you into the places and spaces that you need to be, into the education that you need to receive in order to share. Just because you don't have a fancy title doesn't mean that you're not already a healer. And so that is something that is very important as well.
Fantastic. So final word, Dr. Christina, what would you like to leave with our audience this evening?
Heck, I want to get in touch with Dr. Joy and learn from her, because I'm so curious. So I think I would say stay curious, find people who are learning new things. And I would like to say it doesn't have to be perfect. I want to take a second to relate a story. My daughter had a brain abscess when she was 2 months old. She had seizures. Most of her brain was destroyed. So she had a lot of problems, and she was underwater a lot of the time. She was underwater emotionally, and I knew it was biochemical, but I didn't know how to fix it. And at the time, I didn't really understand the idea that we can use our intuition. But as a mother, that's what we're doing, right?
Right.
So finally, by hook or by crook, like I actually gave her vitamin D, and she got more upset and more emotional. And I thought this should be helping. I didn't know that it was depleting magnesium. She actually lost it. She went hysterical, and I ended up pulling her into an Epsom salt bath, which is magnesium sulfate. And within 20 minutes, she could self-regulate. So I knew there was something going on with the magnesium. Magnesium helps you regulate. It was a nurse that finally told me her seizure medicine depleted B6. Well, now we give her a little bit of a vitamin B6. Well, it's quite a lot of B6 and magnesium every day. And it turned our lives literally from living hell into a very, very normal, livable life. So I do believe there was a very rocky journey to get to that place. And I was scared. I was scared, like, what if I'm giving her too much of this vitamin? What if I'm not giving her this? What if? But you've got to trust the journey, even when it's rocky, that your soul is calling you to the right place, and that you can trust where you're going. And it doesn't have to be a perfect journey. I know I'm a kind of a perfectionist, and you're still going to get there. So trust Allah, and trust your intuition, especially that feminine intuition.
Fantastic. You're both so delightful. We have had a wonderful evening with your presence among us. Yeah. And this has been a great session for us. This is the greatest iftar we could have had here in Europe. Some of us were trying to, have an iftar before this meeting started. But for those of you who haven't eaten yet, what a wonderful way to go into your meal. So we thank you both, sisters, and those of us in the audience who are appreciative of what you have heard this evening, please take your devices off mute and show your appreciation to our two wonderful doctors this evening.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely phenomenal.
So insightful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much. So much beautiful.
Thank you, sisters. Very inspiring.
Fantastic. So we'd like to thank each and every one of you for supporting Spiritual Injection this evening, because without your support for the last 3 years, we would not be able to host such high caliber doctors as we have done this evening. So we thank you for your continual support, and we'll encourage you to continue to support and to spread the good news of this wonderful platform that we have been blessed to develop over a matter of 3 years. So with that said, we're back with Supreme Study Guide tomorrow. Tomorrow, the gods come into circles. And those of you who would like to join us, we start tomorrow at 7 p.m., I believe, if I got it right.
7:30.
7:30, sorry, that's the normal time.
Yeah.
So Ramadan time is 7:30. So we'll see you tomorrow at 7:30 through to 8:30. And on Sunday, we will also see you at 10 a.m. through to 12, okay? So again, thank you, doctors, for sharing your wonderful experiences and the wonderful knowledge you've been able to accumulate up to this point. And we are grateful, we are thankful, and we are very, very blessed, and we're leaving very blessed and very optimistic about life. Any final words, Sister Dr. Silvina?
Just to thank you both for your contribution, the way you have been able to simplify quite complex practices and paradigms is a testament to obviously your mastery of your subject. So thank you for that, and we look forward to staying in touch with you.
Thank you. So to everybody in the listening audience, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We look forward to seeing you next week, same place, same time, for another wonderful episode of The Spiritual Injection. Thank you, and good night and God bless.
Thank you both.
Assalamualaikum.
Islam.
Do you enjoy our content? Well, make sure to like, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you won't miss an episode.